Let me take you to the precise second the man I once was dissolved, leaving behind a ghost in his own life. Coraline thought I was still in the private washroom, adjusting my tie. I wasn't. I was perched 10 feet away, concealed behind a lush, emerald green wall of climbing fig near the orchestra. That annual charity gala, a sparkling vortex of high society and empty smiles, was her favorite night. And tonight, she was breathtaking, a vision in crimson silk that flowed like liquid fire down her back. Perhaps that's why the blow landed with such force. She looked exactly as she had years ago, before the subtle cracks began to splinter our world. What I'm about to show you is a truth most people avoid. I didn't catch the murmur she shared with him. I didn't need to. I saw the way her smile softened, a particular curve reserved only for him. I saw the fleeting brush of her fingers against the lapel of his tailored jacket, and then the quiet, almost practiced slide of a discreet keycard into his inner pocket. His smirk, cold and knowing, spoke volumes. It wasn't the first time. It certainly wouldn't be the last. I stood there, eyes burning, fighting the urge to empty the contents of my stomach into the ornate potted palm beside me. I didn't react like the dramatic heroes in films. No shouting, no smashing glasses, no confrontation. I simply turned and walked away, quietly, because a week earlier, I had already siphoned every last cent from our joint investment accounts. Because I had already meticulously logged and recorded those late-night hush conversations, because the digital files containing undeniable evidence were already sitting securely with Ms. Finch, my lawyer, and because 2 hours prior, while Coraline was having her nails meticulously painted at the boutique salon she adored, I had a locksmith rekey every lock on our sprawling suburban home. She believed I would shatter. She believed she had won. She was convinced that striding out of that ballroom with Lachlan Summers was the final, devastating blow. But here's what no one tells you about betrayal. It can be the catalyst for the perfect escape. She never returned home that night. Of course not. Every beat of the scenario played out in my mind with cinematic clarity. The way she'd probably tilt her head, that feigned innocence, upon seeing the single red rose on the hotel room's nightstand. The light, breathless giggle as he gently unzipped her dress. The smug satisfaction as she reveled in her little rebellion, her romantic fantasy. Did it ever occur to her to ask a crucial question? Why was the room registered under my husband's name? The following dawn, my inbox pinged. The discreet security firm I'd engaged had delivered the goods. Yes, the footage. 3 distinct angles. One from the hallway outside the suite, another from the threshold of the room itself, and a third discreetly placed from inside the living area. Nothing illicit. I had reserved the suite, settled the bill, and signed the waiver for personal documentation with a casual explanation. They never batted an eye. In 7 days, your perspective on human nature will completely shift. People do far stranger things in hotel rooms all the time. I sat there cradling a mug of bitter, lukewarm coffee, watching the woman with whom I had built an entire existence melt into the arms of a man whose name I only vaguely knew. She was laughing, her theatrical joy almost palpable. She moved with a disturbing ease, as if this dance had been rehearsed dozens of times, as if the only thing missing was an audience to applaud her grand betrayal. There were no tears from me. That part of me had long since atrophied. I simply dragged the folder into a secure digital drive, aptly labeled contingency, and sent 2 stark words to Ms. Finch. It's done. Later that same afternoon, I made a trip to our old storage unit. Another detail she'd assumed I'd conveniently forgotten. From a dusty crate, I retrieved the antique pearl necklace, a family heirloom from her grandmother, the one she'd declared stolen the previous Christmas. I'd had it discreetly appraised, then sold it quietly, the funds funneled into a new, solitary account under my name. I also secured the deed to my late uncle's rustic cabin, tucked deep within the secluded whispers of Everglen Forest, a place she didn't even know existed, having always scoffed at the mention of his quiet, wild life. She truly believed she was forging a grander future with someone better. But what if everything you think is solid ground is actually crumbling beneath your feet? She had no idea her carefully constructed world was balanced on quicksand. That evening, I left her a note. Not a dramatic, tear-stained confession, but a concise message, honed to cut deep. Since you've clearly decided to upgrade, I've taken the liberty of downgrading your access to everything I painstakingly built. Good luck discovering who you are without the convenient pretense of being my wife. She wouldn't receive it immediately. She was still basking in the false glow of her victory, probably still draped in hotel linens. But my number was already changed. The funds irrevocably moved. The car title meticulously transferred. She dismissed me as a weak, oblivious fool. But I wasn't asleep. I had been wide awake the entire time, patiently waiting for her to deliver the final, crucial piece of the puzzle. And when she finally did, I took it and walked out of a life she no longer deserved. Coraline finally returned on a Sunday afternoon, just before 3. My array of discreet cameras were rolling, not for public consumption, but because I wanted to immortalize the exact moment that self-satisfied smirk evaporated from her face. I, of course, wasn't there. By then, I was 2 hours away, nursing a burnt diner coffee and watching the live feed from my phone. A soft, persistent rain was falling as her luxury sedan, my luxury sedan, pulled into the driveway. My car, which I had already reported as legally transferred to her name the day before, along with its insurance and registration. Let her unravel that at the Department of Motor Vehicles. She approached the front door with her usual bored, distracted air, eyes glued to her phone. Her key clicked uselessly in the lock. Not once, not twice. She paused under the awning, brow furrowed in confusion, turning the knob as if it were a simple malfunction. Then her gaze caught the sleek new keypad, the unfamiliar lock, and the small, stark, white envelope taped to the polished glass. She hesitated, perhaps suspecting a cruel, elaborate prank. Eventually, her fingers trembled as she tore open the envelope. I watched her lips move as she silently read my words. You chose your path. I merely illuminated the way. Check the guest suite. She froze, a statue of disbelief for a long, agonizing minute. Then, fumbling in her designer handbag, she pulled out her phone. I didn't answer, of course. That number was a dead end. Next, she tried my professional line, but I had already tendered my resignation. A succinct 2-line email had landed in my boss's inbox at midnight the night before. I wanted no threads, no lingering ties to the fabricated life she'd woven her lies around. Eventually, her lips formed the name, Alexandra. She called her best friend. Alexandra, however, didn't pick up. Alexandra had been looped in earlier that morning. I'd sent her a carefully sanitized version of the hotel footage with a simple, potent message. Your friend is not who you believe her to be. You deserve to know the truth. Alexandra's single reply had been, You did the right thing, Callan. She was adrift, uncertain who to trust. That was the first domino to fall. When Coraline finally used the temporary code for the guest suite, her last remaining access, she found her possessions. Everything she had ever genuinely claimed as hers, meticulously packed into 3 sturdy moving boxes. And beside those boxes, taped to the large, ornate mirror she used to preen in front of, was the second note. There's nothing left to fake here. Goodbye, Coraline. She didn't cry, not yet. She just stood there, stunned, gripping the mirror as if it might offer an explanation for her shattered reality. As if none of this was her fault. As if the life she had gambled away wasn't already reduced to ash. 3 days. That's how long it took for the creeping tendrils of panic to truly take hold. For the first 24 hours, she remained convinced this was merely an elaborate emotional bluff. She called my sister Bethany. She called my mother Eleanor. She even attempted to reach my barber. I know because they told me. She spun the same wide-eyed, fabricated narrative. Callan just vanished. He's clearly having some kind of breakdown. She was desperate to paint me as unstable, fragile, the one who had finally snapped. But the truth was, I had spent months quietly, meticulously, preparing, while she was busy rehearsing whispered intimacies for a stranger in hotel beds. I was collecting digital breadcrumbs. She had no idea the man she thought was too gentle had been expertly, like a surgeon, severing every tie behind her back. By day 2, the carefully curated footage was released. Not to the entire world. I'm not that kind of man. Instead, it went directly to her closest family, her older brother, her beloved aunt who had always adored me, and yes, even her father, Arthur Cross. The man who years ago had quietly warned me, "She has a passionate spirit, Callan, but she gets bored easily." I remember brushing off his words then, foolishly believing she could never be bored of me. I was wrong. The initial response from her family was absolute silence. Then came the slow, inevitable collapse. Her brother texted me, his message stark. "You never deserved that. I'm truly sorry for ever doubting you." Her aunt left a voicemail, her voice thick with sobs. "Callan, if you need anything at all, you call me." Her father, Arthur, remained silent. But 2 hours later, Coraline's entire social media presence vanished. Her Facebook profile went dark. Day 3, she made a desperate appearance at my old office. She hadn't received the memo. She stood at the front desk, a brittle smile plastered across her face, asking to see me. The receptionist, Serena, a sharp, no-nonsense young woman, informed her flatly, "Callan resigned, Miss Cross. He left on Friday, didn't say where he was going." Coraline attempted to feign concern, but I could see the exact moment something in her eyes fractured. She was realizing she hadn't merely lost me. She was becoming invisible. That night, my new phone number received a call from a blocked number. I let it ring, then another, then a voicemail. Her voice, thin and cracked, spilled into the silence. "I didn't actually think you'd leave. I was so incredibly stupid. I don't even know what I was doing, Callan. Please, can we just talk?" I didn't answer, because talking was what we used to do when there was something real between us. Now she was just a woman leaving desperate messages for a man who, in her life, no longer existed. I knew deep down she would eventually come looking for me. I just never imagined she would be foolish enough to drive 3 hours into the wilderness without so much as a single phone call first. But that's the peculiar thing about people like Coraline. When their meticulously curated world shatters, they don't crumble gracefully. They thrash, they panic, and they desperately grasp for anything familiar, anything that might restore their illusion of control. I was outside methodically splitting firewood when I heard the distinct crunch of her car tires on the gravel driveway. The air out at the cabin, nestled amongst the towering pines, was sharper, colder than usual for mid-October. She emerged from her sedan in a chic trench coat and impractical heels, as if the forest was merely another stage for her performance. She hesitated, her eyes landing on the second vehicle parked beside mine. Not hers, not mine, someone else's. She didn't know the owner, of course. Rhiannon Shaw, a woman I'd met 6 weeks before my world finally imploded. No romance, not yet. Just someone kind, grounded, and quietly observant, who listened without judgment and offered solace without trying to fix me. She worked in forestry services. She understood the intricate language of trees, the rhythms of the wild, and, perhaps most importantly, people like Coraline. Coraline stood by her car, clearly in a silent debate between approaching and retreating. I didn't move. I simply watched. When she finally walked towards me, her voice cracked, the way it always did when she was losing her grip. "You're here?" she whispered, her eyes darting nervously towards the cabin. "I didn't think you'd—" "I live here now," I stated flatly, my axe resting against the chopping block. "This is home." She offered a brittle, nervous laugh, her gaze darting towards the cabin's welcoming glow. "I didn't mean to surprise you, Callan. I thought perhaps we could talk alone." I didn't answer. From behind me, the screen door creaked, and Rhiannon stepped onto the porch, radiating a quiet calm, holding 2 steaming mugs of coffee. Coraline's face twisted, not in raw anger, but something far more devastating. Utter bewilderment. She had expected me to be a broken man, crawling back, begging for clarity, for closure, for anything. Instead, she was the one standing in the biting cold, uninvited, while someone else occupied the warmth and comfort I used to offer her. Who, who is she? Coraline finally managed. I took a slow sip from the mug Rhiannon handed me, the heat a comfort against my palms. I simply shrugged. Someone who didn't lie. Coraline's jaw tightened, her voice dropping to a low, dangerous whisper. So that's it? You replaced me? No, I replied, meeting her gaze squarely. You erased yourself, Coraline. I just stopped pretending you were still here. She didn't weep. Not in front of me. She simply stood there, lips trembling, eyes wide and lost, completely unprepared for the brutal reality that I hadn't just left. I had moved on. And for her, the cruelest twist was that I hadn't even mentioned her to Rhiannon, because Coraline no longer mattered. I genuinely believed that would be the conclusion. I imagined she would drive away, nurse her wounds, perhaps meticulously craft a new narrative about how I had cruelly abandoned her, hoping to garner sympathy. But Coraline Cross always had a flair for the dramatic, and apparently she wasn't quite finished attempting to rewrite our story, even if it meant incinerating the last vestiges of her own dignity. 2 days after her unexpected appearance at the cabin, an email landed in my inbox. The subject line read, "I owe you." Attached was a video file. I stared at it for a long while, my thumb hovering over the screen, debating whether to engage. I had no interest in her tears or her carefully constructed excuses, but a strange, compelling curiosity still held me captive. The video began with her perched on the edge of a bed, her face stark and bare, eyes puffy from obvious crying. No filters, no edits, no dramatic background music. Just raw, unfiltered lighting and an equally raw expression. But what truly arrested my attention wasn't how utterly broken she appeared. It was the surprising candor of her words. "I'm not sending this to win you back," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "I know that door is irrevocably closed, and honestly it should be. This, this is for me, and perhaps for anyone else who deludes themselves into thinking what I did was harmless." She continued, a torrent of confessions spilling forth. Not just the affair, but the insidious, emotional chasm she had deliberately created long before the physical betrayal. She spoke about a time when looking at me filled her with warmth and how, over time, that feeling had simply vanished, yet she lacked the courage to acknowledge it aloud. She confessed to weaponizing my kindness as a shield, to effortlessly lying because she knew I wouldn't confront her directly. She even recounted the moment at the gala, slipping the key into Lachlan's pocket, admitting she saw me watching, but hoped my embarrassment would keep me silent. "I thought I held all the power," she confessed, her voice barely audible. "But the moment you walked away without a single word, Callan, I realized how truly powerless I was. I didn't cry. I didn't even finish the entire video in one sitting. But what truly rattled me wasn't her apology. It was the chilling realization that for once, she wasn't performing for me. Coraline was finally brutally speaking to her own reflection. Later that evening, Rhiannon noticed the unopened file icon on my desktop. "Everything all right?" she asked gently. I replied simply, "It's the final page of a book I have no desire to reread." She nodded, sensing the boundary, and didn't press. I meant it. I harbored no hatred for Coraline. I sought no revenge. I simply wanted her distant enough from my life that her very name became a meaningless echo. But she, it seemed, couldn't quite let go. Because the next morning, my phone vibrated with a notification that sent a cold dread through me. She had posted the video, publicly. Coraline didn't tag me when she uploaded the video. She didn't need to. Within a matter of hours, my phone was barraged with messages. Some from mutual friends, some from distant acquaintances, and unsettlingly, some from complete strangers who had somehow pieced together precisely who she was referring to. The internet moves faster than truth, and in Coraline's case, it was utterly merciless. She'd posted it on her personal Facebook, her Instagram, and even a tightly edited version on a popular short-form video platform, boldly titled, "An Open Confession, I Cheated on My Husband." The title alone was like tossing chum into shark-infested waters. The comments were instantaneous and brutal. A few lauded her honesty, certainly, but the vast majority tore her to shreds. "You didn't confess. You got caught." Can't believe she thought this would make her look good. She actually expected applause for destroying her marriage. My ex did the exact same thing. You don't get a trophy for being sorry too late. She must have genuinely believed that sharing her side would somehow flip the narrative. That the public would witness her tears, her carefully rehearsed remorse, and rush to her defense. But Coraline had fundamentally miscalculated one crucial thing. Vulnerability only resonates when it isn't a performance. By the end of the first day, she had deleted her posts from 2 platforms. Anonymous users had unearthed old vacation photos of us, flooding the comments with them. They'd even dredged up her old captions, ones where she called me the safest place in the world. Online, irony possesses a long and unforgiving memory. But what truly resonated with me was a message I received from the man she had cheated with. Lachlan Summers. I hadn't even known his full name until that very moment. His message read, "I had no idea she was married. She told me you were divorced and manipulative. I ended things the second I found out the truth. I am truly sorry for being a part of this." For a minute, I simply sat there, staring blankly at the screen. I wasn't sure which part hit harder, the fact that he had so readily believed her elaborate lies, or that he had walked away the instant he perceived the truth, while I had stayed for years, desperately trying to mend what never truly wanted to be saved. I didn't reply. There was simply nothing left to say. He wasn't the enemy. He was just another pawn in a story she told herself to feel powerful. Meanwhile, Coraline posted one final video, a quiet, dimly lit clip, her voice barely a whisper. "Please, stop messaging him. He wants absolutely nothing to do with any of this. I ruined everything. That's enough." And for once, she was undeniably correct. But the fallout wasn't entirely over, because one person still hadn't spoken up. Her father. I honestly wasn't anticipating anything from Arthur Cross. He had always been a man of quiet observation, more an attendee than an active participant in life. During my marriage to Coraline, he rarely offered much, but when he did, you instinctively listened. After everything unfolded, the betrayal, the viral video, the ensuing chaos, he remained completely, unequivocally silent. No texts, no emails, just a profound absence. Until last week. A letter arrived in my mailbox. Not an email, not a digital message, but an actual, tangible letter, his full name and return address meticulously penned in careful, block handwriting. My hands trembled slightly as I tore open the envelope. Part of me braced for anger, for blame, or worse, for disappointment. But what I discovered inside was something else entirely. "Callan," the letter began, "I should have spoken sooner. I watched the video Coraline posted. I watched the way you handled everything with such restraint, such dignity, such quiet strength. I want you to know that not all of us were blind to the way things were shifting. I saw the changes in her, the growing distance, the unsettling self-importance. I remained silent because I believed it wasn't my place. I was wrong. You were more of a son to me than I ever truly expressed. I sincerely hope that wherever you are now, you are building something profoundly better. You deserve that. Do not carry her mistakes on your back any longer, Callan. Let them rot behind you." I don't know what sensation I expected. Closure, perhaps. Instead, I felt an incredible lightness. Not because he had forgiven her, but because after everything, he had finally seen me. After all the quiet sacrifices I'd made, all the ways I had diminished myself in a futile attempt to hold our crumbling marriage together, someone finally affirmed, "You were enough." I'm still here at the cabin. I've planted a small, thriving garden. I've meticulously rebuilt the decrepit deck. And for the first time in years, I sleep soundly, without my jaw clenched in unconscious tension. Rhiannon visits often, but we're navigating things slowly, deliberately. No pressure, no rigid expectations, just a refreshing, unwavering honesty. As for Coraline, I haven't heard from her again, and I no longer need to. Some people spend years waiting for an apology they'll never receive. I received one I didn't even ask for, and then I left the rest behind. So here's my final thought to anyone who might be listening. Stop. Read this before moving on. Don't wait until you're completely shattered to finally leave. Don't ever confuse unwavering loyalty with self-erasure. And never ever believe that you are inherently hard to love simply because someone else stopped loving you.